Hey guys, King of Charman is here. Alright, so this video is purely for science. I absolutely hate this thing. Well, I don't... Hate is a very strong word. I very much dislike this evil Venus flytrap from the netherworld, known as Shadow Victreebel. It needs no introduction. It is the grasshole of grassholes, the king of grasshole, the pineapple of destruction, well, technically the pear of destruction, or Venus flytrap of destruction, and it has probably taken your elo, including my elo, at one given point in time in Go Battle League. The goal of this video is how viable is Shadow Victreebel? Now, in some cases, Shadow Victreebel is actually better than, I would say, Wigglytuff strats. Or, I've actually seen people use Wigglytuff and this thing put together. So, yes, there are evil players running this thing around. And is it as dominant as it is in regular Go Battle League in the right line? Well, on its own. There's no secret of why. I don't even need to tell you why this thing's evil. One, it has... Okay, so it's this evil shredder. It's like a paper shredder. Well, the paper is your Pokemon, and it shreds through you with Razor Leaf. The whole purpose of Shadow Victreebel is to use Razor Leaves. Oh, by the way, you could use Weepinbell as well. Yep. So people are using like double Weepinbell, double Razor Leaf strats, etc. with Shadow Weepinbell and this thing. So the whole point of it is to have Razor Leaf, Leaf Blade, and Acid Spray. Acid Spray preferably, because if you break a shield, there's really nothing that stops this thing to shred your... If it has shields, and if it has shields and energy, it's going to shred through you. That's basically what it is. A lot of even shield scenarios, it can shred through things. Now, even though you're weak to ice, even though it is weak to ice, it can actually shred through Frostless. So it can shred through a lot of the meta, unless you put it up against a flyer or a grass type. So grass and flyers, anything that resists Razor Leaf, this is what you want to put against Shadow Victreebel. As you see, it also resists other grass types. It resists electric types, fairy types, fighting, and water. So basically every archetype this is what makes it so dominant. So every archetype but flyers, it resists it. And like I said, if this thing has shields and has enough HP, it can actually shred through Frostless. So not even Frostless is safe. Well, Marowak, flyers, and grass type and poison users are your best bet to combat this king of destruction, the destroyer of all elos, Shadow Victreebel. Alright, so Shadow Victreebel. Okay, here's what it does. It's actually pretty high. It's actually in the high rank. It's actually in the hundreds. As you see, it literally shreds through all the fighters, including all the ground type users and the charmers. This thing is the Paper Shredder of Doom, and the Paper Shredder is anything but things that resist it, as in Galvantula, Altaria, Skarmory, flyers, grass types, etc. So, that's basically what it is. It's a very powerful lead if you do win lead against Shadow Victreebel, and you do happen to win switch. If you throw it, again, a lot of people have been using this along with Wigglytuff, so they pair it and it just destroys, it wrecks. In fact, it can even take out other Wigglytuff users because of the poison type, and guess what? It resists Charmers. So, the Shadow Victreebel, if lined up correctly, has a really great time because look at these ratings. Again, very good in the lead. Not so much as a closer because there's a lot of things that can one-shot Victreebel, but it still does really, really good. Just because a lot of the meta, such as Vigoroth, etc., are in teams. So it does shred through a lot of teams. I'm not going through the analysis that much because it basically just shreds through everything. Literally, this is the tap-tap strat from hell, and Shadow Victreebel just does... And like I said, as you see what it beats, it does really well in the Holiday Cup because there's not a lot of things that absolutely stop Shadow Victreebel. Yes, there is, but you'll see just how oppressive it can be as long as it doesn't match up against what resists Razor Leaf. Alright, as I always say, please consider donating to pbuilt.com. I went pretty fast with Shadow Victreebel because you probably already know how to kill this thing. And if you are curious, it means you're curious that how dominant it is. So, we're not going to get fancy here. Razor Leaf, Leaf Blade, Acid Spray. It's literally that simple. You acid spray, you cut everything down, or you leaf blade things to death. It's that simple. Also, because Victreebel has very high attack, it's going to win CMP a lot of times. So, don't bank on winning CMP against the Victreebel. So, Victreebel with the 2 shields, we're going to run the simulator. And as you see here, remember I was talking about Frostless? Yeah! It can shred through Frostless with 2 shields. It can also shred through Galvantula with 2 shields. In a lot of even shield scenarios, if this thing lines up correctly, it can actually just shred through the competition. As you see here, it beats the fighters, it beats the charmers, except for Whimsicott, because Whimsicott actually resists Razor Leaf, which is actually pretty funny, and the flyers and steel types. Basically, you lose to anything that doesn't resist Razor Leaf is going to die. Including some steel types, as in Magnezone. Yeah, Magnezone can still die. So Magnezone, Lapras, Lantern, Graveler, Galvantula, even some things that do resist it, like Galvantula, it does shred through you, including Frostless. So that's what makes, as you see, that's not a lot of red. So unless it's a fire, flyer, or a steel type, unless it's Magnezone, because Magnezone can't even take those Razor Leafs, you die. So that's what makes Shadow Victreebel so strong. In the 1 shield, as long as Victreebel has shields, it gets nuts. In the 1 shield, it's pretty much like the 2 shield. Basically, literally the exact same situation. As long as this thing has shields, you're gonna have a problem. The only difference is in the 1 shield, you lose against Galvantula. Well, yeah. Shadow Vic only loses Galvantula in the 1 shield. So you only drop one matchup in the 1 shield. Everything else you end Magnezone. Well, this depends. If you eat the mirror shot, you can actually just KO just because you don't. Yeah. So if you eat the mirror shot, you can actually flip the Magnezone matchup. So you lose 2 matchups, just 2, and you still shred everything else, including Frostless. And in the zeros, this is where you don't want to be, but ironically in the zeros, this is where Frostless will destroy you. A lot of things are able to take out Shadow Victreebel in the zeros, thank you God, because you don't want this thing to get rolling. As you see here, you lose against the flyers, you actually beat Galvantula in the closer, which is nuts, and Frostless can actually take it in the closer. Frostless loses in the 2s and the 1s, that's how busted this thing is. And it just takes out a lot of the meta. Again, if you don't resist it, it's probably going to kill you. It's probably going to kill you. And the 2 to, if it has shield advantage, it's probably the worst case scenario for you. It's shield advantage. If it's not a flyer, it's probably going to shred you to pieces. It's not a fire. Like I said, if it doesn't resist it, Alola Marowak, fire, flying, steel. Except for Magnezone, because Magnezone is squishy, you die. And in the 2 to 0s, it's even worse. Well, actually, in the 2 to 0s, you just basically die. It basically takes out everything but Altaria, flyers, and Alola Marowak. It is so oppressive, it actually can take out Alolan Sandslash, which is pretty nuts. So basically, everything but flyers and Alola Marowak die to a 2-shielded Shadow Victreebel. Shadow Victreebel in the 2 to 1 shield, it's basically the same exact scenario. The only difference is you will lose against Sandslash. That's it. Other than that, you shred through the entire meta. Unless it's the same resistances like I mentioned, and Alolan Sand. That's what's kind of weird. It kind of flips back and forth, which is just really funny because Shadow Victreebel is just so oppressive and destructive. As you see, it's very powerful against anything but the flyers and, like I said, some steel types. And it actually is, like, there's nothing... The fact that it can 2-shield shred through Frostless is just nuts because if you do run Frostless strats, or if you have a... Yeah, it's very, very unforgiving. It can also tear through the fighters. And the main charm, which is Wigglytuff. So it's just merciless how destructive Victreebel is. Shadow Vic. That was probably one of the shortest analysis I've ever done. And I don't even want to give this thing a rating. I give it a 7. And that seems pretty dang high. The Holiday Cup is arguably the safest meta that Shadow Victreebel ever has had the pleasure to roam around in. The reason being is because the lack of things that actually... With Shadow Vic, you pretty much have to, like... It forces a lot of people to have a flyer on their team. And a flyer isn't a bad idea for the sheer existence of Shadow Victreebel. And combined with Wigglytuff, both of those mons are very, very safe. Like I said, even though there's a lot of shield pressure in Shadow Victreebel can set up your back row It can take out the hard counter to your back row, and then your back row can wall the... Yeah. There's a lot of nasty things you can do with Shadow Victreebel. Condensed metas are actually good for Shadow Victreebel because, like I said, there's not a lot of things that take it out. Essentially, the things that take it out are Alola Marowak and Flyers. If you take out the one thing that takes out Victreebel, leave it with shields, it can shred through things. It can shred through even Frostless. So the mere fact that it can shred through Frostless is why I give it such a high rating, because Frostless is in a lot of teams. And if you realign incorrectly and this thing goes against like your Alolan Graveler or against your Lantern, it's going to go to town. So that's just a big problem with Shadow Victory. Also, because of its immensely high attack, it's going to win CMP against a lot of things in this meta. I believe it's either the highest or one of the highest like CMPers. So this thing, if it gets rolling, it'll deal so much damage. And I've beaten a lot of them. I haven't, but this is how oppressive Shadow Victreebel is. Unfortunately, the tap Razor Leaf strat does very, very well in the Holiday Cup, because like I mentioned, there's not a lot of things that check Shadow Victreebel in this meta, but because it's in this meta, you need to have a Flyer or a Whack in your team, or you have to have a team that uses an immense amount of shield pressure, because the best way to take out Shadow Victreebel is to leave it without shields, which is his biggest weakness. Once you take out Shadow Victreebel's shields, or if you do resist it super hard, you can take out Shadow Victreebel. So once this thing's out of the way, you can go to town. However, like I mentioned, with the ability to win CMP and just to shred everything, including Frostless and 2-shield and the 1-shield scenario, this thing is just a beast. If it answers your question of whether you want to use it or not, if you are a GRASSHOLE user that is listening to this video, this thing is really good to use. You should probably use it because you have a lot of experience using it. I don't recommend it. However, if you are really used to using it, by all means, go out there, 2-shield shred, take out the Frostless, take out their hard counter, and then this thing can go to town. If you leave this thing in the back with shield, it's arguably a better strategy than the Wigglytuff matchup, as long as you don't go up against Altaria. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. Again, I didn't want to do it, but you know what? You gotta have to. It's better for my viewers or my community to be aware of this evilness, rather than to kind of be like, oh, does Shadow Victreebel work? Well, here's your answer. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.